Hello everyone, Argsy here. Well, today is the day we can finally share with you some pre-release footage of Farming Simulator 25. I've had this for a little bit, been exploring through and taking a bit of a general look at the game and trying to pick out some of the changes, some of the differences from Farming Simulator 22. So this is kind of an overview, a broad brush on what's changed, what's new, what's different between 22 and Farming Simulator 25. There's quite a few different changes, and I think some of them are actually really fantastic. Some of them might take a little bit of getting used to, would probably be the best way to describe it. But we're going to dive in and just sort of click through, have a look at some of these menus, have a look at the game once we've loaded it in, take a look at the PDAs and things like that. And a lot of these we will dive into in a bit more detail. So like I said, this is a little bit of a broad brush of what we've found so far. We have had a little group where we've been able to share a few ideas, chatting with some other content creators, Farmer Cop, DJ, the Farm Sim Guy, Clutch, and a few others around what changes they've picked up as well, just to share our ideas and make sure we've got everything covered. So thank you to those guys, and make sure you go and check out their content. Well, without further ado, let us go in and take a look through here. So once again, we saw the menu screen when we had the pre-release or early access version at case, but this is a lot different. It's got a lot more on it that we can actually click on. So first things first, we come in here and the career is obviously going to be the main part. Scroll down, I've got these all empty because I haven't saved anything yet, but 20 slots, so no change there. Delete button down the bottom if you want to delete it, and we've got a back and continue button. Multiplayer, once again, much the same as previously. Got the option to join a game, find a server, you've got the create game there as well, and rent a dedicated server. Interesting, these here, you can sort of click through some of these prompts and little tips there. You've got a list for block players. Look at that, I don't have anyone I dislike. You can change your name up through there, so just come in and type that. And otherwise you're back and continue. So nothing too much different. Downloadable contents, this is where you will find all of the downloads that you can. So just taking a look here, what have we already got? There's gameplay, we've got the government subsidy and the MacDom pack in there. So government subsidy is going to be available right from the start. Got the MacDom pack there, but other than that, we've got nothing else. And then you can just see what you've got installed in the game, what there is to update if you had an updatable mod, what DLCs you've got, and then obviously what extra content you've got as well. So there we go, we've got the Sierra 11 Gold Edition installed as well. We'll jump back out of there. Interesting, you can find these sometimes. You can actually use your Q and E to go across. You can turn off and just show there. You've got the search, show crossplay mods only, and there is a search option down there as well through the DLC, and you're installed. So you can see some of these features down there as well across a lot of them. But yeah, you can often use your keybinds to go back and forth between them. Achievements, as you'll see, there's a couple I've achieved already just playing through there, but what have we got? We've got 2, 4, 6 across, we don't even need to worry about counting them all. There is 45 achievements in total, so no doubt someone will go through and take a look at those in a little bit more detail and read them all out for you. I'm not going to do that, but you can see there is quite a few different achievements there to go through and unlock. Now, I know this is one that people will be a lot of interest in, is our options. So we're going to dive in there. This is quite a common theme as you go through, and once you get into game as well, you'll see these tabs down the side, which are used for your different settings. So we'll just come through here. We've got our first general settings option. You can choose your languages, scroll through a number of different languages there. Make sure we find our way back to English, or I am going to be in a whole heap of trouble. There we go. Multiplayer language as well. It's interesting, you can actually set a different language for multiplayer. Interesting as to why you might want that. And then you've got your help mode, whether it's set to auto, so it depends on whether you're using a controller or a keyboard, or you specifically want the keyboard or gamepad or controller. Input help options to default to, so that's a nice little touch. As we go down, you can see whether you've got input controls for your gamepads and steering wheels. We'll get into a little bit more detail there. Your head or eye tracking, if you've got a, say, a Tobii eye tracker or something like that. You can adjust your force feedback. Now, I haven't tested this out yet, so that's something I'm sure will interest people. I know it's been a lot of debate about your force feedback. And then, of course, your inverted Y look, which some people like, some people don't. Your sound settings, and there's a lot of actual sound settings in here. You can adjust your master volume, music volume, vehicle volumes, environment, character, radio, GUI volume, game volume while not in focus, which is an interesting one. Going to change that because I often tab out of my windows like this and the music stops. Let's just hit apply. Come back in here. I'm just going to tab out once more. still not in focus. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I can never get that to work. So tapping in and out doesn't actually keep the volume going, which is a little bit annoying. And your voice chat volume, voice recording volume, not sure what that is. Is that my voice as a microphone? I'm guessing that's for multiplayer. So you can go through and adjust those. Some nice little prompts there as well as you go over each of those as to what they adjust on the side. So I like the look of it. I do like how everything looks. Carrying on, next up is our display settings. Once again, nothing too much difference here between what we've had previously, except probably this is one of the bigger ones. You can adjust your frame rate. No longer is it locked to 60. We can go right up there to 240 frames per second. I haven't bothered changing that. I'm actually going to go in there and throw that on at 144. And that'll match the frequency of my monitors. We've got our set to windowed mode. Main reason is so when I tab out and go and look at something on the other screen that this window doesn't minimize. You can adjust your resolution scaling, so we've just got that set at 100. You can change your brightness there and your in-game HUD scale as well. That changes the size of the speedo and the maps and things like that, so you can adjust that. So far I've found no way to customize the HUD, which was something they had talked about at one stage. Moving on into controls, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail, possibly in another video, but you can see here across the top you've got your options here, your key 1, key 2 and your mouse, and then if you tab across you can actually see you've got options. Now I've got my SimTask farm sticks plugged in and my Hori farming control steering wheel plugged in, and they've actually defaulted with the settings already there. Now I haven't actually used them to drive or anything like that, but you can scroll down and see there's a whole lot of pre-configured settings on that. What's frustrating for me is that seems to be all you can have is the two devices on top of your mouse and keyboard. I also have my Thrustmaster controller that I use all the time plugged in at the moment, and I can't do anything with it. So a little bit frustrating there. I'm sure if I go through and tried to change, say, a setting there for walk and not use the farm stick, I often don't, but if you wanted to go through and change some of those settings, I'm sure you could overwrite them and have multiple settings for different devices. In fact, just to prove the point, let's go through. I'm going to go in here, press my button I'd normally accelerate, and there we go. That's actually proved the point. I'm pressing the button for accelerate on my controller and it's not doing it, so I can't even map multiple devices to one set of controller settings. So that's a little bit frustrating, I must admit. You can't have one joystick, more than a joystick or a steering wheel plugged in. So if you're someone who might want to run dual joysticks plus a steering wheel, might be a little bit of a problem. That's interesting as well. I actually do have my accelerator plugged in for my the pedals for the steering wheel are plugged in, and they're not actually showing up there as an accelerator and brake under the Hori settings. So a little bit more experimentation I think needed with that, but I would love to see maybe a future update to bring in more options and more lines here for different controllers configured. Moving on down in the bottom here, there is some device settings there. So if you press X, you can scroll through your different devices and change some of your sensitivities, your dead zones and things like that on each of those. So that's that. I did skim over very quickly under display settings. You can press space, of course, going back to this, and you can go through and adjust your settings in there as well. So you've got your draw distance, foliage distances. These will max out at 200. Now we will get into this in more detail, but it is possible still to go through and customize those beyond the 200. We'll go and take a look at that again in a separate video, but you can see there all the different settings. You've got some settings there added for the volumetric fog quality, whether you have the cloud shadows when the clouds roll over the fields, all of these different settings in there. I'm running, just for reference, an RTX 3070, and so far haven't seen any issues really with frame rates or anything like that. But yeah, a whole lot of settings in there, your tires, your mirrors, all of those kind of things. So very familiar. Getting some of your post-processing settings there as well. So jumping out of there, really the last two things in here are the credits and the option to quit out of the game. So we're not going to go through in there. So let's move on. When you first start up a game, we're going to come into here and find our first empty slot, and this is one of the big changes I have found in the game so far. So first things first, we've always been familiar in FS22 of having your settings of choosing your map and then choosing your preset, whether you are a new farmer, farm manager, or what wasn't start from scratch previously but now is called start from scratch. So nice little change there. So first things first, got your option here to scroll across the top between your maps. So we've got our three maps, Zalonka, obviously the premium expansion map, platinum expansion map from FS22, which has been brought through. We've got Riverbend Springs, the US map, and of course Hutan Pantai. And we're going to start off on Riverbend Springs just for a little bit of a change. Haven't spent much time on there yet, but as we have a look across here, you can see we've got new farmer, farm manager, and start from scratch, but then there's a whole lot of other configuration options. So using new farmer as an example, you can turn off and on whether you want to start with any farm or not. I quite like that actually. Often you might want to sell up and use a different farm or not use what's there. So you can have the choice to use the starter farm, yes or no. It does change whether you get the intro tour or not. I'm not sure whether that's disableable like it used to be able to be, but you can just tick that when you are loading in and starting your game for the first time. So we're going to leave that on yes for the starter farm as we go on, but you also see here you can actually scale your money. So previously on new farm you'd start with the equipment, a few fields, and $100,000. Well, you can actually scale this up to 50, 500, 750, up to $1 million. If that's not enough and you want to make it just a little bit harder for yourself, you could choose $100,000, but add in some more money via a loan. So that will go up to $1 million there as well. So, you could, I guess, use that to simulate a little bit of a financial, reflect the real world farming, whether you do owe money to a bank and not everything you use can go back into selling or buying new equipment or new fields. And then the setting there for easy, normal, or hard difficulty, which of course will change the sell prices for your commodities. So we're just going to leave that on easy and leave this all pretty much standard. Going through farm manager, you can start off with $1 million or make it really hard for yourself and go down to $100,000, and your loan will go up to $1 million for that one as well. And just for completion, start from scratch, 500 up to $1 million as well, 750, 100, 250. So again, pretty much all the same in there. I can imagine seeing this is going to become modded very, very quickly to perhaps change some of the options here for these. Imagine having a $2 million loan and zero money to start with. Make it an interesting challenge. So back here, we'll just turn that all off to no, and we're going to click on continue down in the bottom and go into Riverbend Springs. Now, of course, this does bring up our mods and DLCs. We can see the Macdon pack there, which we have installed. That is the only mod we have installed at the moment, I think, and we'll have a look when we get in there. We'll see if the CR11's sitting in there as a purchasable option, but not actually an expandable option as a mod. We did see it there. So you can see you can deselect all the mods or select all. You know when they're selected because they are green on the bottom. We'll hit start there, and we're going to get into loading. Nice little detail down here on the bottom telling where you're loading into, just in case you clicked on the wrong one, what your current financial situation is and how long you've been playing on this save. And then we do just have a number of different prompts in that are scrolling through here on the bottom as you go. Right, so we're at 100%. I'm just going to hit on start. The music's going to stop, and we're going to be struck with our character creation screen. So once again, I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but you do have a lot of different options. Notice the characters do look a little bit different to the ones we had in FS22, so obviously a little bit of work gone into those. To me, they actually look almost a little bit more cartoony. They've lost a little bit of the, I don't know if it's the realism or not of them, but they just felt a little bit more plastic, might be the best way to describe it. But you can see there, you've got the options down the bottom here. You can change your name once again, then you can go through, and there's all sorts of hairstyles you can have. Be completely bald if you want. Kind of a bit of a look, isn't it? No point selecting colour, but you can go for your hair colour through there. Facial hair, and then you've got all your outfits. We do see a few different or new outfits that have come through from different manufacturers. Strauss being one of them, and they've actually got some quite cool stuff, but we won't worry about that just now. We'll get into that in a little bit later, but check out that. It's a pretty cool looking top. But yeah, lots of different options there for your clothing, including, would you believe it, and I don't know how I feel about this, Crocs. I don't mind some of this other footwear, not really that much of a health and safety, a few health and safety issues going on there with open footwear on the farm, but maybe it's for when you're in the greenhouses. A few options there for hats, gloves, and of course glasses. So we're just going to crank on in because I don't really care how I look for this one. We'll worry about what we're going to look like a little bit later, but yeah, there you go. We're actually in the back of this shop, and we'll take a look soon, but that is the shop when you're purchasing your equipment. So we're kind of in the showroom, I guess would be the best way to describe it. I'm going to look there on the wall. That does look like the map for the farm, for the starter farm, so we might just see how realistic that looks like. But nice little start out here. Flash screen from FS22 on the wall as well. Right, let's jump in and go and take a look. And here we are, Riverbend Springs, and the starter farm you would end up with if you do choose to start on New Farmer. You can see Grandpa Walter is standing over there, the first of our NPCs. Just taking a little bit of a look around, you can see some of the different buildings. We've got an animal pasture around. We've got one of the farmers markets out the front. Animal pasture, I think, it's just over in... which direction is it? It's over in that direction, over behind the sheds. We'll go and take a little bit of a look at that in just a second. But now we're into the game, probably want to have a look at some of the in-game menus. So the in-game menus have been consolidated in some regards. We've got this tabs down the side, which I said you would see kind of a theme going through. But then once you're in the tab, you've actually got some different options. So everything that's covered on the map is all done here under this one tab. So we've got all our crop types, and they're actually much easier to see. It's quite nice actually. You can see that they're color coded with what's in front and what's behind. So field 3 on the farm is the wheat there. So you can see that color matches the color there on the field. So I kind of like that little touch. You can see all our different crops. You can also press Z and that will deselect and select them all. So let's say you just wanted to figure out where a canola field was. You can deselect them all and find out that field 5 there is canola. Go back in and sort of click through and see what fields are where. Which I think is kind of nice. So deselect and select all. Carrying on through, you get into our different growth stages. So I'll zoom out just to show a little bit more of the PDA. Once again, select and deselect all. You can filter those much easier. Soil composition, we've got our weeds fertilized, needs lime, needs rolling, mulched, stoned, and watered. Now if we turn off weeds, you'll notice that this does stack. So we'll turn off weeds there so you can start to see, I think field 10 there had a few weeds on it. Turn that back on. Here we go. So field 10 there, covered in weeds. Turn that off. You can see it's fertilized. Turn that off again, and it doesn't actually have anything else there. You start to build those layers up, much the same as you were able to previously. Scrolling through a little bit further, we can start to see the hotspots, and I think this is a great little change. Is that the triggers in that for buildings and locations is much clearer. So you've got our tip stations, so basically sell points. Click on this one here. You've got the farmer's kiosk over the back here. There's the playground, the playmaker's hall. Just click through those. You can see the grain west. So those are basically delivery points where you might be able to sell your crops. We've got loading stations. So if we have a look here, you've got the gas station, for example, is a loading station. Up the top here, we've got a lime station, another lime station down there. So you can start to see manure, liquid manure, things you can buy scattered around the map. Our productions, and I like this one because productions are much easier to see, and we'll look at those in just a little bit more detail in just a second. And then you can see animals, contracts, and others. So others are things like where you can visit the NPCs. You've got Ben over the road, we've got Walter here. Just try and click on the farmhouse, the animal dealer, and places like that. The main shop down there in the middle, even where you can rent the train. So I think that's a nice little touch. I think that is a much visually a bit brighter. It might feel, again, a little bit cartoony, but to me, I think it's a pretty fantastic way to be able to differentiate the different sell points and not just rely on a symbol, which is what we had to do previously. I just want to zoom in here really quickly. Check out the art there. Sunflower maze. That looks pretty cool. I do like that. Nice little touch, nice little bit of detail going into that. BGA up there as well. So moving on through the menus a little bit further, we've got our farmland. So this is where you can buy and sell. So it shows up there as what's currently owned under our My Farm. Let me turn that on and off. No, can't turn that on and off. It just shows up as what's currently owned. We can click on another one. It's slightly different color, and that tells you all the details about it, whether you want to buy it, you can visit it, how big it is, what its value is. And then we've got the unowned, which is basically grayed out, and you can see that grey around there. And obviously parts like the town, which aren't purchasable, so get a good idea on what can and can't be bought very quickly. Now imagine, without having looked at this, I imagine multiplayer will have different options, and you might see your farm, Farm B, Farm C, Farm D, with those different colours that we have in multiplayer. Create a job. This is where you might want to take a piece of equipment, and we'll click there on that that one there, so we can select a vehicle to create a job. Set a destination or create a job there with it. So the options there are on the vehicle. You can actually even sell it or reset it back to the sell point from here. So nice little feature for that. And then our active workers. So we don't have any active workers, but it would show those if there was. So that's us looking there at the map. We've going into it a little bit more detail than I thought I would. We've got our crop calendar. Once again, quite visually easy to see when is planting and when is harvesting season, and this actually includes all the weather down there. So we've actually got a sort of long range forecast, what you might expect through the different months. Obviously a bit warmer, sunnier in September, October, November. Weather turns December, January, getting colder and snow before it starts to slowly peak up there in February. And then that's your daily temperature and weather, wind, all those kind of things. Nothing else to look at really there. We've got our planting season, months and things across the top, and scroll right down, we've got a number of different crops. Now it's quite a list, it's quite lengthy considering all the new crops that have been added. So moving on from the crop calendar, we've got our animal options. So if we had multiple pastures in there, you could tab between them. Now they are nameable, so you can identify which ones they are. And then you've got your information there about your animals. It gives you everything on one easy to read screen. You can see the condition of the animals, what they need, if they're short on anything, even what the different foods are. Nice to see silage in here as an option for cow pastures, as is hay. So no longer is it necessary to just provide them the TMR. You can see the meadow there, which is the grazing and pastures for the cattle. So nice to have that. Moving through the contracts, and contracts has had a huge change, and I think this is one of the biggest changes, and I really like what they've done with contracts. We'll go into it in a little bit more detail, but you can start to see we've got the deadwood contract through there, stone picking, we've got wood transport. So some of the contracts that we saw in Silver Run Forest have made it through into FS25, weeding and things like that. But like I said, we'll go into the changes and some of the features of the new contracts in a little bit more detail, so keep an eye out for that video. Tab across and you'd see if we had an active contract, and let's just go and accept one just for argument's sake, just so you can see that. Tab across there and that will show up your active contract, and obviously you've got a little map there showing where the contract is in relation to where you are if it's flashing. You can also, if we just jump back up here really quickly, we'll show you there as well on your hotspots, so you can see flashing contract on the screen. So nice to have that too. So moving on again from contracts, you can see all of the productions. Another great change in my opinion. So this is all of the available productions. You can tab across the top to any that you own. Now what I really like about this is it's quite easy to now come in and see without having to do too much exploring exactly what you can have for each crop, each production, sorry. So if you wanted to buy the bakery, you can make bread, or bread with rice flour, cake with flour, or cake with rice flour, and it gives you all of the required inputs there, all of the information in one screen. Canning and some interesting ones here. Kimchi, which was a bit of a surprise because Napa cabbage is a new greenhouse crop that we hadn't picked up anywhere else. So some nice little things there. Noodle soup with flour and eggs. Make some noodle soup. So some cool little options through there. Just great to be able to see this. Cement factory, I was a little bit disappointed with this. I was quite excited when we saw the cement factory in the Riverbend Springs highlight, but all this takes is stones to make cement brick or cement bags or roof plate. So once again, it would have been nice to have a little bit more of an expansion on these inputs. Maybe stoned lime and a little bit of water to make cement or cement bricks. I don't know. And likewise, this is one I'd been wondering about for quite some time, is ropes. What were the inputs going to be for ropes? Well, cotton or wool are our two inputs for ropes. So correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard too many times of cotton or wool being used for rope in particular, but there we go, we do have those in there as well. But yeah, nice little feature, nice way to keep track of what you can do with the productions and what you actually own, keeping track of the ones you own. Just point out, these are the ones that are placed on the map. You can go through and add other productions on that might not be on here, so keep that in mind as well. Now moving through into the pricing screen, and this one's actually quite an interesting one. It has a lot of information contained in it. We've got all the commodities down the side, and nice to see them now called commodities. A little bit hard to follow this now because everything's sort of ordered in a different way. It's all alphabetical, so it'll take a little bit of getting used to rather than having all of your crop commodities at the top. You know, people who don't do barrels, bathtub, breads, buckets, and buffalo milk probably don't care that that's at the top, but when the core function of a farming game is harvesting your barley or your wheat, which is now all the way down the bottom, it would be nice to probably have those grouped. So again, maybe we'll see something like that come as a mod or as a feature in the future. I do like the way that this is changed now though, where you can actually compare all of the sell prices through there just by clicking through and having a look at that. What you can't do though is you can't see what something sells without having to go and look at it. So tag that place, we'd probably go and visit it. I'm not sure if it will sell, and we might just check that out and tell you everything that it sells. But there we go, nice little graph, much the same as what we've had previously. I've had a little bit of a look to see if anything's really changed. It doesn't seem to have. It looks like things like your cereal crops are going to be at the best price in January, and if we go down and have a look at soybeans, which was always a June-July proposition, there you go, peak price in July, and you're not going to be selling those in winter. So when you're harvesting those in October, November, you're going to be holding on to them for a long time. But across the top, we've got a few more options. Your vehicles, this lists all the farm vehicles that you own. You can come in here and you can sell those, view them on the map. That is about it, but it does give you all the information and statistics on those, any hand tools you might own, the overall finances for your farm, and this is where you can come in and take out a loan. So press space or click on the button down there, and you can borrow and repay your loan. And then just your game statistics, so you can see all of those through there. Once again, I haven't gone through this in detail to see if there's anything actually different in terms of what's being tracked, but that is all of that information all on those screens. Lastly, you've got your game settings through the bottom here, so you can save your game in here. You've got all your base game settings, so you can set your autosave intervals, 5, 10, 15 minutes. You change your time scale. You can go from 0.5, up to 360. So again, we'll probably see that get changed at some time. If you want to adjust your economic difficulty after you've started, you can do that. Turn on traffic, just a whole lot there. Seasons, crop growth, all your optional extras, whether you want to have fieldstones, lime, all those kind of things. All pretty familiar with what we've had in FS22. So we'll take a little bit of a look in that in a bit more detail. Once again, general settings. So you can have your help menu on colorblind mode. It's nice to see this one being a lot more visible and a lot easier for people to find when you want to have your zone markers on or off your field info. Units, nice to see areas added in, hectares or acres as an option, but not too many other options through that. And yeah, just your camera settings, your input controls, and more controls there for your volumes. And then again, your keybinds. So if you want to come in and adjust the keybinds on the fly, you can come through and do that in there under those settings. Much the same as you can on the default page. I often find if you're going to be adjusting your keybinds, you want to be doing it in game where you can actually change them, test them out, and see if they work, and then go through and have another play. So we'll jump out of that one, and you can see, actually I hadn't checked that out before, but you can see that place we tagged. It's 1433 meters away and is over in that direction. So that's a nice little change. Not longer having the Jedi green lightsaber flying up into the air and using that as your wayfinder. You can actually just use a point in the distance, so nice to see that. So we'll take a quick look now at the vehicle purchase screen, because again, I know this is a popular one we'll look at, and again, we'll go into this in more detail, but you can see things are ordered just a little bit differently. One of the things I have noticed is you can't come in here and click on your garage to find out what vehicles you own. The only way you can actually do that is through that previous menu I did show you, but we've basically got all our brands through there. Your drivables, so everything's broken down into different categories. So we've got our tractors, trucks, cars and bikes and things like that. You've got your loaders, trailers, soil cultivation, seeding, yield improvements, so manure spreaders, fertilizer spreaders, sprayers, weeders, rollers. Even your consumables are now down under this section. All your combines are merged into sort of categories there. Forage harvesters, grassland, baling, but you get the idea. We can go through that and talk about them all, but you can see how things are now structured. We've got our packs still, so if you're wanting to come through and do one of the new crops, such as long grain rice, probably not the best example. Let's go into the rice one. It'll give you the specific equipment you need, because we do know it has a very specific planter and a specific harvester required. Still have the used vehicles in there, and you can see we're getting some pretty hefty savings on some equipment there. The Grimmy, is that a potato topper, is it? Not sure exactly what that tool is even. Here we go, something I'll have to do a little bit of research into. But yeah, some interesting equipment that you're seeing there, good savings. You can see your mods and DLCs you've got installed, and go through and check out some of the other things. Now, if you do come into the animal dealer the way we have just come, there is actually no way to go back to where you were, so we have to actually exit back out. And you've obviously got your other options: wardrobe, change how you look, construction, farmland, and vehicles. So those are all your different menus. So you can reach those through a number of different ways, of course, with your keybinds and key shortcuts as well. So the next menu we're going to take a look at here is the build menu. Shift P is the shortcut I use. We could have gone to it through that previous menu, but coming in again, very familiar. Got options for sheds, factories, animals, fences, or it's really decoration, and our sculpting. And then through the top, you've got your options up the top. You've got sheds, silos, your silo extensions, constructibles, buildable houses, and buildable garages. You've got containers, so things for storing fuel and things like that in. Your tools, pressure washer, etc. And then your farmhouses as well in there. Scrolling through the factories, this is all your production. So like I said, even though there is some pre-placed, you can actually still come through and build additional ones. Right down here, in fact, which the ones I like is some of these smaller, cheaper ones. I know that the production and the speed of them isn't as high, but it does provide a way to get into doing some of the productions without having to have a whole heap of money to buy the big expensive ones. Selling points, again, some good options in here for different selling points. You've got a debris crusher on the right here, your biomass heating plant, so just some smaller versions of them. Bigger debris crusher there as well. Farmer's kiosk, those kind of things. Your greenhouses, once again, you can see all of those crops if we just hover on the right spot. And then of course scroll down a bit further and you'll get to your mushrooms, and it has the two different types of mushrooms. Cultivation is where you will have your vines. So we've got our grapevines, our olives, or our rice field. And we'll take a look at the rice field in a little bit more detail in another video. And then things like generators, which we've had previously. Cows, lots of different options there for cows, and we'll take a look at how we're going to place cow barns in another video as well. We've got the horses, pigs, sheep, and chickens. Bees, I like the bees actually. There's some more, I don't know, more unique beehives in there than we've had previously. And then of course the good old-fashioned doghouse. Fences, there is a huge selection of fences, and some good changes to that as well. So again, we'll dive into that in a little bit more detail separately. Lights, once again, huge selection of lights if you're into building and decorating. I know there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time building up farmhouses or farmyards and things, so it's great to see quite a little different options, decorations and things like that, garden sheds and whatnot, all scattered through here. There's even some buildable sheds as well, which are built as a kit, so you've got to deliver the required materials, but these are outside the build menu here we had for constructible houses and things like that earlier. Then of course our typical sculpting options, raise and lower, level, soften or slope, so much the same as what we've had previously. Tab through on that, you can get to your painting. It's nice to have some sort of cost put next to it. There's a limited palette of materials. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 on that tab. Your trees, good selection of trees as we've heard about before, huge increase in the number of different tree types and varieties around, and then our plants as well. So that is all there, and all there for you to do and choose what you want to do with. So other than that, we'll have a quick look around the starter farm here, but I think this video is going to be very long, just looking at menus. So I know there's a lot of information to take in there. I just really wanted to be able to pull that out and bring it to you, just to give you an idea. I know there'll be a lot of people fascinated with that side of things, but you know, there's just some really nice touches, the way that these sort of fade in and out the closer you get to them. We've actually got one of the buildable sites over here. There's a little shed, I think it is, that you can build. Up here and have a look. There you go, small shed, tells you down the bottom what you require. The other thing up there, you can see we've actually got the contract for deadwood, and it does tell you the progress on screen, and that will stack. You can add multiple contracts, but again, we'll get into contracts in a little bit more detail separately. But yeah, other than that, I think that is a good way to wrap up the first look here at sort of loading into and starting up your first game in Farming Simulator 25, and what to encounter, what you might expect to come across as you do that. But firstly, let's just bounce over this field. Not quite so pronounced as it was previously, but there you go. You've got the deformable terrain there with the ploughed texture on it. I know when I walked across this previously it was really bouncy, but there we go. Nice to see it. It does look good. I do like the look of that, and we're going to have to get in and do a little bit of ploughing just to see what that looks like. But there we go. I hope you found that interesting and fascinating, and an insightful way to start a first look at Farming Simulator 25. There's been so much discussion, not so much, I was going to say conjecture, but not so much of that, but certainly a lot of intrigue and interest into what might have changed when it came to the menus and the interfaces and things like that. So that was a bit of a broad brush look at all of them. There's a lot we can dive into in a lot more detail on some of those as well, and we will certainly look to do that over the coming days. So like I said, hope you found that interesting. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you very much for the support across this amazing and exciting time for Farming Simulator fans. I hope you're looking forward to getting your hands on the game in the next few days. And I'm certain that you will enjoy this. It is a huge step up from FS22 in my opinion. So keep an eye out. Take care. So there we go. Thank you. So I hope you found that interesting. There's certainly been a lot of discussion, a lot of intrigue and interest into what might have changed with menus, what features may have been added that we might have seen come through from mods or anything like that. Not too much changed, except for a lot of how it was laid out, but there are certainly some interesting things there, and we'll dive into some of them in a little bit more detail. Contracts and construction is certainly one or two that I want to take a deeper dive and look into, because there has been a lot changed there, and I think there's been some really positive movements that have been made. So looking forward to bringing you that. Keep an eye out for those videos in the coming days. So as always, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hope that has got you even more interested and excited about Farming Simulator 25. If it has, don't forget you can use the code ARGSYGaming on the Giants store when you're purchasing anything, whether it's the game, DLC, or of course the Year 1 Season Pass, and that will go to help support the channel. So thank you all again. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one.